Hello everyone and welcome to week 9 and chapter 22. There will be an exam this Thursday that will be available on D2L all day. There is going to be a study guide that will be posted on D2L, so please look for this in Unit 2. And there is going to be an assignment that is due this Friday at midnight covering just this chapter. In this chapter we are looking at salads, and although we mainly know the salads that are a loosely sorted arrangement of vegetables, meat, cheese, and salad dressing, there are also congealed or gelatin salads, and we will talk more about the characteristics of congealed salads as we go through this chapter. You can have salads with just vegetables, salads with meats, salads with carbohydrates like beans or pastas, and you can have congealed salads. All of these salads are going to have a different degree of nutritional value. Know the nutritional value that each of these salads provides. Many people use salads as meals, but they don't do a very effective job of replacing meals unless certain criteria are met for the salads and certain types of foods are included in the salads. Be able to identify what comprises a good salatin. For gelatin to create its structure, it needs to go through a process known as gelation. Know how gelation occurs and know the effect that certain ingredients have on the gelation process. Salad is a general term and basically describes a cold mixture of meat, fish, cheese, nuts, seeds, beans, eggs, vegetables, and fruit. But this definition really does not tell us much. It is more so to give us a framework and also help to explain that salads come in more than just the traditional vegetable/salad dressing combo that we are all familiar with. To help us better understand the diversity of salads, we will break them into two main classifications, the congealed and the non-congealed salads. Non-congealed salads comprise a loose mixture of the ingredients mentioned previously, while the congealed salads contain all of these ingredients but they're within a gelatin structure. Often these gelatin structures are sweet and comprise desserts, although this is not necessarily the case, and non-sweet gelatin salads are less common and perhaps less appealing, but they still do exist. The difference between congealed and non-congealed salads is that the congealed salads contain gelatin. Gelatin holds these food items in place, like you can see in the pictures on the right side of the screen. And this is literally the same thing as foods being trapped in jello. The gelatin is based from just two ingredients, gelatin granules or gelatin powder and water. And when they are mixed together at high temperatures, a gel structure is formed through a process that's known as gelation. By itself, this is just a source of protein and it's a very clear color. However, if you have ever had jello or a jello salad, you know that the jello structure is always sweet and there's usually a bright color that it has as well. This is because there are usually colorings and flavorings that are added to the gelatin. The gelatin does not naturally contain the colorings and the flavorings. They have to be added. So to clarify, the jello structure is a mostly gelatin mixture. There is some sugar and coloring added to give jello its flavor, but to put that in a clearer context, gelatin is jello without any flavor or any color. Gelatin salads are basically foods held inside the gelatin mixture. They can be sweet like the grape salad on this slide, or they can have a more traditional salad flavor, which you will see in the picture with the salad that contains the vegetables and olives. We may be beating a dead horse here, but as long as the food is trapped or congealed within a gel structure, you have what is known as a gelatin salad. So gelation is very simple. It is just the process of forming the gelatin, which occurs through mixing water with the gelatin. However, there are some factors that need to be taken into consideration for creating this gel structure and promoting gelation. Mixing room temperature water with dry gelatin will not be sufficient by itself to allow the gelatin strands to bind together and become one stable structure. The gelatin water mixture must be heated and then cooled to an optimal temperature in order for ideal gelation to occur. So there are two steps: heating and cooling. During the heating, the gelatin molecules form bonds between one another, but it will remain a liquid when it is hot. To create a solid structure, it must be cooled. Before it is cooled, it must be heated to a high enough temperature for a long enough time. If it's heated for too short of a time or at too low of a temperature, that is going to have a negative effect on the final structure of the gelatin when it becomes stable, and we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. To reach the gelation state, the gelatin needs to be cooked and cooled. Temperature control is very important for gelatins to create an optimal final structure. In order to develop strong bonds between the gelatin molecules that will make that final gelatin structure very stable, the gelatin must be cooked at higher temperatures for a substantial amount of time. If gelatins are cooked at lower temperatures, they will not have as strong of bonds and will liquefy more easily. After the heating process is complete, gelatin structures will need to be cooled in order to form a solid, non-liquid structure. Some gelatins need to be cooled to very low temperatures, but generally ideal temps fall between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Acids are often added, but not necessarily intentionally. You would not add an acid food to a gelatin to provide that gelatin structure with more acid, but they are often added to foods to boost their flavor. So let me give you an example. Many gelatin salads, they contain acid-producing fruits like oranges or pineapples, or even fruit juices, which are going to add flavor to that gel structure. The addition of the acid is going to actually weaken the gelatin structure. So to counteract this, we must add more of the gelatin powder to the mixture if acidic foods are going to be used. Do you remember the function of salt in bread as it relates to its structure? Just as salt increases the strength of the structure of breads, it's also going to increase the strength of the gelatin mixtures. Salt is rarely added by itself to these mixtures, but often with the inclusion of other foods in the salad. Now for sugar, that actually has the same role as acids related to the structure of the gelatin formation. It causes it to weaken. To prevent an overly weak structure, you have to do the same thing that you do when you're using a large amount of acid. You have to add more gelatin to increase the gelatin concentration. This is very important to remember because sugar is usually added to gelatin structures as a flavoring for the gelatin or as a food within the gelatin. Now, to complicate things even a bit further, some foods such as pineapples contain enzymes that break down protein. And if you remember from earlier, gelatins are largely a protein-based structure. Fortunately, enzymes are mostly destroyed by heat, so they will need to be cooked before they are added or mixed in with the gelatin powder. Now I know what you're thinking. I'll have to cook all of my foods before adding them to the gelatin. Well, you might actually be in luck. Instead of having to cook these foods to kill their enzymes, you can buy many of these foods in their canned forms, and the canning process will actually destroy the enzymes that break down the gelatin. So you lucked out. However, if this does not happen, when you mix these enzymes with the gelatin will immediately be destroyed, and it will not be able to develop that connected and gel-like structure. Because there are so many different types of salads with various ingredients, not all salads have the same nutritional quality. But we will try to explain which salads are the best options and why. High vegetable salads contain many vegetables and have a great nutritional breakdown. They will have many vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, antioxidants, and dietary fiber, and without many calories. So they have lots of good stuff. You can pretty much add as many vegetables as you want to your salad without having to worry about portion sizing, unless you are using starchy vegetables. If you get starchy vegetables, this is when you will start to add calories to your meal. And this is through vegetables like corn, squash, and potatoes. But most vegetables are not starchy and just contain large amounts of other beneficial nutrients. Meat, fish, and eggs are all excellent sources of protein. Grains and starchy vegetables contain significant amounts of carbohydrates. And if you get the right sources of each of these foods, you will also get many beneficial nutrients. For congealed and gelatin salads, if you are eating these salads, there will be a few more calories added through the gelatin structure and any flavorings added to the gelatin. Plain gelatin only contains a little bit of protein, but the flavorings that are added to the gelatin structure are what will provide more calories in the form of sugar and carbohydrates. And if you add fruit, you will also be getting many beneficial nutrients, but this will also contain sugar and carbohydrates. So they make for a good addition to salads, but they should be only added in moderate quantities. Fruits, vegetables, grains, nuts, beans, teas all contain phytonutrients. They are not found in meats or animal products to any extent. Phytonutrients provide a form of protection for the vegetables and fruits and other plant-based foods by protecting them against destruction from insects, animals, and even things like UV radiation from the sun. Fortunately for us, these same nutrients are beneficial for us, but not in as clear-cut of a way as some other nutrients. So let me explain. Carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, and minerals are all responsible for sustaining specific body functions and keeping us alive. Without one of these types of nutrients, some severe malfunctioning would occur. And many people, even in the United States, and even at Eastern Illinois University, probably have some type of carbohydrate, fat, protein, vitamin, or mineral deficiency to some degree. Now, phytonutrients do not function quite like that. Without phytonutrients, we would still do just fine. However, they still have health benefits. Phytonutrients help to prevent against the development and onset of certain diseases. Due to the limited research available on phytonutrients, nutrition experts cannot say exactly what it is that they do or how much of the phytonutrients we should be eating. But they do something, and they are good for us. As there is more research devoted to the understanding the functions and the benefits of phytonutrients, we expect to learn more soon. So over the next 5 to 10 years, there will very likely be a lot more information coming out about this. The bottom line is that a variety of fruits and vegetables are very good for us for a variety of reasons, and now you can eat a loaded vegetable salad knowing that you are doing good things that will help specific body functions, and in some way, shape, or form, you are also benefiting from the high phytonutrient load provided by these fruits and vegetables. There are two guides in this picture. We have the MyPlate from USDA and the slightly modified MyPlate from Harvard. Regardless of whichever model you prefer, I would personally say there are many more positive aspects to the Harvard plate, but regardless of that, the four main components are relatively the same. If you look at the middle of that picture, you can see each of those visuals have the four groups: the fruits, vegetables, grains, and proteins. So salads, they can comprise a sufficient meal when they contain substantial amounts of each of these food groups. If you have a salad with 2 cubes of chicken for your protein, or on the other hand, if you use the double XL cottage cheese scooper for your protein, that is not following the guidelines. Unless, in the case of the extra cottage cheese, you are exercising to the point where you can use all of these extra calories. But regardless of whether you are trying to lose, gain, or maintain your weight, or don't even care about weight and just want to have consistent energy throughout the day, the balance that's provided by this plate is going to help you to achieve this. For weight loss, the super low-calorie approach is not effective. The carbohydrates from the grains and the fruits group will actually help your body use fat for fuel. Of course, you can lose weight by restricting carbohydrates, but this is not recommended unless this is doctor approved, because there are very, very specific numbers of carbohydrates that you should still be eating, and if you do this incorrectly, it will completely zap your energy and put you at risk for losing a great deal of your body weight from muscle tissue. An emulsion involves the mixture of two ingredients that do not mix well with one another. If they need to be stable, you add an emulsifier, but the reason that mixtures do not mix or do mix well together is due to their electrical charges or polarity. Liquids are strange in this way because they do not have just positive or just negative charges. They will either have slight charges or a completely neutral charge. And if they have slight charges, they don't just have one, they have two. So they have positive and negative charges for the same mixtures. Positive and negative molecules, or polar molecules, mix really well with other polar molecules. They do not mix well with nonpolar molecules. To explain this, let's go back to school dances. An oil, which is nonpolar, and vinegar, which is polar, mixture are two non-mixable ingredients because they are not attracted to one another. This is like your grade school dance. At this particular dance, the guys happen to be very talkative and polar, and the girls like to keep to themselves and are nonpolar. In fear of the talkative guys, the girls all move to one side of the dance floor. They sit in a group but do not speak or interact with one another. Now the guys are all very social with one another, move around and talk to different members of the group, and they actually spend the same amount of time with each member of the group, but they are afraid to talk to the girls, so they decide to move to the opposite side of the dance floor. Now you have a complete separation of the two immiscible or unmixable groups of people. Then a song comes on and a very strict principle says everybody must find a dance partner before the next song begins. Otherwise, you will be kicked out of the dance. So although it is very awkward, all of the students rush to the center and immediately find a partner. They have to pick a partner or they will be kicked out of the dance. This will happen, and then all of the students come to the middle. So the song is like the emulsifying agent that forces these two groups to mix together and dance. Now on the other hand, you have permanent solutions that mix together very well without the addition of an emulsifying agent. When you mix sugar and water, now as long as you do not add a crazy amount of sugar to this, the sugar is going to dissolve in the water so that it becomes one single mixture. This is because the sugar and the water are both polar, meaning that they both have two electrical charges. Both of these are positive and negative. Because polar molecules really like one another, the sugar dissolves into what appears to be a stable mixture, but this is only because the molecules are very good at bouncing around and off of one another. The sugar-water mixture is like having a group of friends that are all dating. Instead of going out to dinner with the same person every week, this is like going on a date with a different person in the group every Friday night. So the entire group meshes very well and they would appear to be one unit. In this case, there is no bias. Each person in the group likes the other people they go on dates with equally. So they mix very well and interact as one whole. This is what happens with sugar and water, which again are two polar molecules. So this solution is a stable solution. To agree, this is through its instability. To create an emulsion, you can do one of two things. And you wouldn't do it for this mixture, you would do it for the first example with something like a oil and a vinegar, something that is nonpolar and polar. So either one, you can shake up the mixture so that it mixes well for a short period of time, or 2, you can add an emulsifying agent that will cause the mixture to be stable permanently. The first option is temporary, and the second option is permanent. The temporary emulsion is the oil and vinegar dressing, because you have to shake this up very well and then pour it on a salad immediately after shaking. Unless you add an emulsifying agent like an egg, this is going to remain very temporary and has to be poured onto the food very quickly. But in the case of this type of salad dressing, it's not ideal. So that's it for this chapter. This material is not going to be on your exam, but it will be on your next quiz. Your exam is going to be on D2L this Thursday. And on D2L, there is a study guide that is posted that covers everything that's going to be on this exam. So if you review this study guide, you are going to do very well on this exam. This exam is going to be 40 to 45 questions, and it covers all of the material from Unit 2. Quiz 3 is coming up, and it is 2.5 weeks away. This is going to cover weeks 9 and weeks 10. There will be no study guide for this again, so if you have any questions, please contact me with them as soon as possible. Otherwise, have a great week and good luck on your exam.